All right. Hello and welcome to the Guest Life Podcast, episode 33. Today we have the amazing Natasha Paikin in the building. She's with New Horizon Development Group. She's the director of client experience. She is awesome. I've known her for a while now. And we just want to take a second to say thank you. Episode 33. Can't believe we're here. For everybody tuning in. Just very grateful to give back to such a great community that's creating entrepreneurs and leaders just like Natasha, and really coming together and offering up wisdom, insight, and getting to know the face behind the name. So Natasha, thanks for coming.
Oh, thanks for having me. I can't believe I'm here either. This is it feels like a rite of passage into the local business world to be on the Guest Life podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I was fortunate enough to meet Natasha through the We HBA. We're both active members in that community, which is forever rising. I think our under 40 events, not toot my own horn because I took over from John Anthony, but those events are pretty powerful, and the groups just keep getting better and better, I think.
They do. And it's such an amazing place to make connections with other local people that are in the similar industry to us, but also just in that passionate, motivated space of being entrepreneurs like yourself, or in a family business like myself, and just really living for the work that they're doing.
Yeah. It's as we kind of grow and get into business, I find it's so interesting, the dynamic between like working for self, working for someone, being a manager, family business, just entrepreneur. And I think the diversity in that group is very that everyone's moving forward. Mm-hmm. Everyone's trying to get better, whether it's, self-learning, whether it's group training. I know we've had some fantastic speakers come in. Neil Thornton's coming in soon, and just learning from that. But also, we just started a little group where we're talking about tech, and what kind of tech is used at each company. And it's interesting when you take out the dynamic of competition and everyone's just trying to help everybody. Mm-hmm. I find that's a special place.
That's so true. And that small group we started has been so valuable on the simple tool of just learning what cloud function we should be using in our office. And it's just a group that got together and started talking about it. So
yeah. And it's funny because there's not even a drink in your hand when you're doing it.
Yeah, exactly. So far.
Yeah, so far. So a little bit about Natasha. Again, I've had the fortunate pleasure of knowing her and getting to know her, but tell us a little bit about what you do and what your position is at New Horizon, and how you come to be this young entrepreneur.
Sure. Well, for starters, New Horizon, we're a primarily residential real estate development company. So we specialize in high-rise developments in the GTA West, but also townhome developments, custom homes, renovations. And I've been with New Horizon full-time now for just about 4 years. And my title right now is Director of Client Experience, as you said. So What that really means is overseeing all of the touch points we have with our clients. So, starting from marketing to sales, when we interact with people that are considering becoming our clients, and then moving into, once they do become our clients, their experience of purchasing that home, and then coming to our design center and picking the selections for their new home, and then ultimately, doing their first walkthrough and picking up their keys, and then having service in their new home after the fact. So It's really exciting to be a part of that, because ultimately I'm just tagging along on, one of the most exciting journeys of their life, and getting to contribute to that. One of the biggest purchases,
right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
And as you were explaining it, I'm like, oh yeah. And I'm sure it's like when people talk about business, it's like, did you think about this? Did you think about that? So how do you manage, how many people do you manage? What does that role kind of consist of?
Good question. We're growing, so the number of people is growing right now. But basically, we have a sales and marketing division that are headed up by a sales manager and marketing manager, and then similar with our design team, we have 2 managers there, and in the client relations team, a manager there, and then the broader team below them. And really, these people are what make these teams function so well, because they all kind of embody the same values and the same goals, and we're a really tight-knit, passionate group. So, that is really helpful into making sure that our clients are feeling that same positive, fun energy with their purchase that we're kind of exuding.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I know it can be overwhelming. I remember signing my first house, like, what did I do? Right? Like, where have I gone wrong?
Yeah,
right?
and a lot of people feel that way, and a lot of people don't know what to expect, and especially first-time buyers never having done this before. They come into it a little bit fearful, obviously. It's a big move, and to be there, to be able to provide them with a little bit of guidance along the way is just so rewarding.
Yeah. Well, I bet like it's like helping create something special. Right? Mm-hmm. Not only on the actual construction side, but they get to put their own twist on it. I'm sure that's kind of an interesting place to be.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And even just to get to know them through that journey, and then to be able to say, oh, what color did you pick for your kitchen? Or, how did the flooring in the bathroom turn out? Like, to be able to watch that whole journey after having just met them when they called in to ask about an upcoming development. It's really cool to be there.
Yeah. And I think, from personal experience, before I got into that industry, I didn't realize kind of the end product and also how great the end result could be until I started meeting, people like yourself, that it's like, wow, there's a whole experience with it. It's not, oh, I just bought a new house. It's no, you get to pick it. You get follow-ups. There's a warranty process, right? You get to make sure that it's right. Right. You get to work with the designer. You get to, put your own twist on something that's built for you.
Exactly. And the challenge and the opportunity we have now with that is being able to still provide that really personalized experience at a broader scale. So making every client feel that there are one client, no matter how many different ones we're building a home for at the same time.
Yeah. We always say no one cares. No one cares about what else you got going on, right?
Exactly.
Like, as you grow and you start, I know that we felt that pain here. It's like, well, I'm bigger now. I'm busier. I can't answer every single phone call you have. They don't care.
Never an excuse.
Yeah, no. I hate using the word competition, but do you find that the industry is elevated now that there's so many, different players in the game, where it's like people do have options and choice? Do you find that's a positive kind of rise up in the industry?
For sure. And like you said, there's a lot of options and choice, but there's also a lot of demand. So I think what we're seeing right now is a huge influx of demand in the GTA HA West, and not the supply to match that. So even though there are so many different builders and different products, and you might be launching a condo while someone right down the street is launching a townhome development, so there is that different choice. Yeah. Still, in general, there's just such a shortage of supply right now that we're really feeling that in the past couple of years.
Oh, I can imagine. And I'm sure the business is doing some really far in advance thinking of hey, where can we put a development? And we know the struggles with the city, and for anybody listening, just because there's a tower going up or a townhouse complex going in or a row houses being built, it didn't just happen overnight, right? How long does that process normally take?
Oh, it can take years. We have one future development right now that's been a 9-year process so far, and we're not even close. Wow. So that's kind of the upper end of things. And, it can happen in as quickly as potentially a year or so if it's on the quicker end of things. Yeah,
right place, right time. I'm sure those are harder to come by now because of the demand, right? A lot more people looking for those quick turnarounds. And
they are. And even just, a shortage of land for sale. There's not that much out there to house what needs to be built right now. So that can often involve processes like rezoning and changing the definition of what that land is supposed to be used for, just because of the changing market.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's so interesting on a dynamic standpoint of business models and how they change. And I'm sure you guys have to adapt on the fly.
For sure, we do. And it's interesting to kind of watch and be able to learn from what's happened at our past or our current developments and how the market has responded to certain designs in order to apply those to something that is going to come into play years from now. And, we might have gone 2 years through a planning process for something, but something in the market changes and we have to change the plan for that development, even though we've made it this far, just knowing that the market's changing and you have to adapt.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure the last couple of years have been kind of going like crazy, but it doesn't seem to be slowing down. And we're not going to get into that topic, but I mean, it is wild to see and how creative you can be, right? Like, especially with this land development opportunities. I know Spencer McKay,
Yes.
that we both know. I went to high school with Spencer, and like
No way.
I had no idea what he did, and like learning about like just because that land says it's only supposed to be doing this, well, we can challenge that and we can do something else, right? And for anybody listening, sometimes, zoning and a plot of land, you can't build a 10-story building on a single family home just because it's Toronto and you have the square footage. But you could put a parcel together, which might be a couple single family homes, and put together a development there for anybody tuning in that doesn't really understand what we're talking about.
That's right. Yeah, that's totally right. And it'll be really interesting, especially in the recent changes to the kind of City of Hamilton specific planning regarding that urban boundary expansion, which I also won't get too much into. But basically, with the decision made that the growth can no longer go out, we have to go in and up. So, that's really going to apply in Hamilton specifically in the next couple of years.
Yeah, we're going to get some views of the water, which would be nice.
Yeah, that's true.
So you've been in the business 4 years. It's a family business. Tell us a little bit about your journey. How did you get here? How are you in front of the mic? And how did you become director of client experience?
Great question. Well, I started coming to the office when I was probably a couple months old. When I was old enough to start stamping envelopes, I did that. Yeah. And it's one of those things where I feel very fortunate because, first of all, my dad, who started New Horizon, we both get along very well together. So, him always having a place for me at the table provided a lot of opportunity for me to learn and to see that this was something I really wanted to get involved with.
Yeah.
So, skip ahead to university age. I went to Bishop's University in Quebec to study accounting.
Okay.
Wasn't sure if I wanted to become an accountant, but knew that if I wanted to work in the marketing side of things, an accounting degree wouldn't hurt.
Yeah,
so
I
did that. And then ultimately graduated. And the one piece of advice that my dad always gave me was, go work somewhere else before you come here, and don't come here until you're ready to stay. Because if you come and you leave, you're not welcome back.
No way.
You can't just jump around like that.
I love that.
So it was good advice because it made me really consider when to make the move to join New Horizon and not to rush that.
Yeah, so let's just take a second there, and that's going to be the tidbit of the entire thing just so far. So family business, go work somewhere else before you come here. Mm-hmm. And if you're coming here, make sure you're going to stay. I love it.
Yeah. I mean, it really helps with just earning the respect of those around you, especially because, you can't be jumping in and out. They're not going to rely on you for anything. So,
yeah.
So anyway, I tried some other things in the marketing field. And
was it marketing that you got into?
It was, yeah. So I did some summer jobs in real estate specific marketing, more on the agency side of things, which was also a great experience to learn how that side of the spectrum works in terms of when your clients are the builders.
Okay.
So that was really helpful.
Oh, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm. And then kind of actually worked in a completely different space right after graduating at the school I used to go to, Hillfield Strathallan College.
Okay.
And that was in the admissions and marketing side. So it was almost promoting the school to new parents and being kind of like the salesperson, for lack of a better word, for that school. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was a cool, really different experience, but still, heavily involved in the marketing and sales side of things. And then I was covering a maternity leave contract there. So once that contract ended, I kind of, realized how much I had been thinking about New Horizon, and I was like, it's the time.
No way. Mm-hmm. Well, I love that. And I really love the conversation about trying different things, and also How much perspective did that give you on the position that you have now?
So much perspective, and even just from the perspective of being an employee. I mean, knowing what it means to function as part of a team or to report to a manager, and knowing how different styles of leadership feel from an environment with which you're not familiar. That was so helpful to bring with me. And I had an amazing manager in that job who taught me so much about just how to lead and how to lead by example more specifically. So
Wow.
yeah, I'm very grateful that I had that opportunity to learn that.
Oh, that's so special. I think, when people talk about management styles and also becoming a manager, I find it's like, lest we forget. And it's talking about those dynamics and like, how to get the most out of people, but also like not in like a, I don't want to say condescending way, but like not with an intention, right? Like the goal is we're a team and we go together and everybody has a responsibility. You're not trying to manipulate someone into doing something just because.
Right. That's so true. And I think leading by example is a great way to put it, because ultimately you're all in it together.
Yeah.
And the way you function is the way that your team is going to function. And, on top of that, I think, in a leadership role, it's really important to teach your team around you to focus on what you can control, because there are so many unknowns and so many things thrown at you all the time that to create a work environment that doesn't get phased when something new is thrown at you and that just gets together and says, okay, what are we going to do about it? That's amazing. So important.
And how have you've brought that into the New Horizon lifestyle, and everyone's talking about culture lately, and it's like it's cool to talk about it. It's another thing to have it, and it's another thing to live it. Yeah,
that's very true. And I mean, when I joined New Horizon, I mean, it's been nearly 30 years that it's been in business. So I only joined a few 4 years ago. So, I walked into a place that had an amazing culture and a really tight-knit team. We have people on our team that are with us and, have been with us since New Horizon was 3 people working out of a storage closet in downtown Hamilton.
Really?
So, that culture has really carried through.
Oh, that's nice.
So, our team's amazing, and there's no question that the culture's there because of them.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, getting to know the team, and I find people come and go, and it's a good thing. Mm-hmm. A lot of people try to hold on to relationships for whatever reason, just because they've been there a long time. But I find like as you build that culture, and as people are going to get, I'm sure as you guys have grown, it scares people, overwhelms people. And also like, just like I'm sure you had with your manager, they don't own you. So, you move on and you grow, and they have you for that position. And that's where that leadership comes in, where you just get the best out of a person, you make them their best version, and, have them help the business as they come.
Mm-hmm. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah. That's amazing. So in terms of now, 4 years, you've been working there. When we talk about leadership, I think, there's so many different angles towards it. How have you grown into your leadership position? Because I think kind of like we talked about before air, but people are talking about, we have this analogy of they don't know the end of the road. So the high school basketball player, which everybody that's tuned in has heard this before, but the high school basketball player can't see themselves in the pros, but you put that college pro there and they see those next steps, which is high school to college, college to pro. And, for you leading a team now and being involved in such an important piece of the business, how do you find your management style? And like, kind of, did you pick and choose, or did you just kind of go with the flow?
That's a great question. And I think going back to focusing on what you can control, that's certainly how I've grown into where I am now. Especially being in the context of a family business, I think it's easy to experience what they call imposter syndrome, which is kind of doubting your abilities to do whatever you do. Yeah. I know that applies to family business or entrepreneurship, really, because you're going out on your own, and of course you're going to doubt your abilities to do that. Yeah. So that applies to everyone, I'm sure. And I think that, over time, if I could avoid wasting time thinking about that, to be quite frank, and just focus on the fact that, you're showing up as first in the office, you're leaving as last at the end of the day, you're dressing professionally, you're showing up to meetings on time and, with the knowledge you need to have, which seems basic, but when you're starting at such a young age with perhaps not as much experience as others, it's all those little things that build up to the fact that people are going to rely on you and are going to know that you're contributing to their team.
Yeah. Yeah, it was something that, like, the imposter syndrome is such a nail on the head there. Like, it was such a big thing for me in my career. And I found once I got over that and realized that people that did know didn't expect you to know. And they appreciated when you asked them, made them feel important, empowered them. But also, as a manager, I'm sure you're a lot younger than most of the people that you manage, if not all. It's like, as long as they feel supported, they don't want to be in that manager role anyway. So you're taking the brunt of it and using them for what they're really good at and what they love to do. That's
true too. And I mean, even, perhaps having a challenging experience with a client who's having a less than perfect experience with you, to come in and be that person. And like you said, perhaps be so much younger than your client, you can really question your ability to help them in that moment.
Yeah.
But I think if you just, make your intentions clear and, sincerity always comes through in the end.
For sure.
Ultimately, they're going to appreciate that.
Yeah. And my coach says, surrender the result of the outcome.
I like that.
Yeah. So whatever the outcome could be, let's not worry about it. Let's just, deal with it, ask the question, deal with the hard conversation head on, and the outcome will come. So surrendering that result before helps with that imposter syndrome. I know Craig's probably listening. So helps with that imposter syndrome, allows anxiety to be lowered, and you can go into relationships and situations calmly. And I think that's a huge piece when it comes to, I'm sure you guys are doing some serious volume now where there's a lot of client facing opportunities that can go, you have to be one person in front of the client and then the door closes and you're dealing with team challenges, which is, say a client's upset, which happens, or really happy, which just happens. It's that reflection piece of how do we either let's do that again or let's avoid that in the future instead of just, beating yourself up or getting too excited.
Right. That's so true. And that comes back also to, I just think the amazing abilities of our team that we have right now and just their ability to pivot in those situations when we learn. An example, most recently, we built our first luxury condominium on the waterfront of downtown Burlington.
Yep.
And this was a first for us. So there were a lot of learning curves, a lot of new experiences there.
Yeah.
And, our clients stuck with us through it all. And at the end of it, ultimately, we made it our goal to reach out to all 151 clients individually once they got their keys to try and have a one-on-one conversation with as many of them as had the time for that and just really learn from them. And I think back to the very first person that moved in, while the lobby's not even done, it's very much still under construction. And having that conversation with him after being the very first person in the building and immediately taking what we learned and applying it to the second person to move in, taking what we learned from the second, applying it to the third, and just constantly evolving our processes to try and better the experience for our clients.
So that is the definition of surrendering the result,
Yeah.
which is amazing because, again, like, you go into it with fear, as we all do with a lot of situations, and you come out with it, I'm sure, a huge weight off your shoulder. Wasn't nearly as, overwhelming as I'm sure you expected it to be, being, again, like you said. And I'm sure that person, whoever it was so appreciative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and for sure. And I think that, it goes back to just kind of giving yourself to the process and knowing that if you're putting your best foot forward and your full intention into giving your all to that process, then everything will fall into place after that.
Oh, that's amazing. So talking about the process and where you guys are at now, and I know you guys you're at scale and you're growing and you're moving and shaking. what are the next steps for New Horizon? Where do you see yourself in the next couple of years?
That's a great question. Also, we see ourselves in a lot of places. That's for sure.
You don't have to disclose everything, but more. We're here for you today, not just New Horizons. So
no, for
where do you see yourself? Where do you want to be? What do you love?
Honestly, I mean, I kind of got into this role just in the past year, so it's kind of new, and
amazing.
I really love it. So I see myself here for a while to go, and there's a lot more I'd like to do in this space. So that's me personally. New Horizon, we're still kind of in our same catchment area, building between everywhere from Oakville to Brantford, Cambridge, and Beamsville. That's kind of the triangle, if you can imagine it that way.
It's a lot of space.
Yeah. So I mean, sticking within that area is kind of our plan. And we have, nearly 1,500 units under construction right now.
Wow.
And then another 7,000 coming through the pipeline after that. So ultimately, the next 5 years are going to be bringing a lot of those developments that we've been working on the design and planning for to the market, which is really exciting.
Oh, that's amazing. Mm-hmm. And you think about it, and does that overwhelm you? Does that excite you? How does Natasha feel?
I feel excited. Yeah. That excites me. Yes, definitely exciting. And it's ultimately getting to that point of having a development approved and ready to sell. That's what you're working towards for years at a time, like we've talked about. So that's one of the most exciting positions to be in this role, is just to finally be able to say, this is what we've been working on for years, and it's here now.
Unveil the curtain. Mm-hmm. Oh man, it's so exciting. And then again, it's nice, and for people tuning in, talking about consistent growth and positions and raises and stuff like that, I find some of the people that I've dealt with at a younger scale too, they want to get to the top so quickly, but understanding the process that comes with it, right? Like even in business, if you look back at, I look at my career and sometimes forget how long I've been doing it, but it's like, I started as an apprentice, right? But it's all that is the process to being where we're at now, right? And those leadership roles that you find, like, you're very involved in the WHBA, and it's like, so is that part of it? It's like, yes, it is, right? Because you start freeing up your time, but also just adding more to your plate. I wouldn't say free time. Yeah. That's a little overzealous. But yeah, it's like, all these things are stepping stones in the right direction to put more chips in your pile so that you can better service whatever industry you're going into, whether it's building or plumbing or HVAC or being on a podcast, a lot better today than I was in episode 1. I'll tell you that for sure.
For sure.
And so, yeah, that's so exciting. So, we've talked about business. We've talked about the journey, 4 years, your schooling, your early jobs. Now it's, how do you balance your personal and your work life? Because everybody wants that. I think fuck balance. But how do you, what do you do in your free time, and how do you manage, or is it just all work?
Well, I think, like you said, you understand this well, because from the entrepreneurship point of view or from the family business point of view, your work life and your personal life are kind of one and the same. They're your life. So I'm also not the greatest person to speak to about balance. My sisters often tease us sitting around the dinner table that they didn't know they walked into a business meeting, but it just happens sometimes. And I think that's what comes with being in a business that you love and a line of work that you love. And I mean, to be honest, I don't have any secret of keeping it separate, because it's very much together. Yeah. And, that's one of the benefits of having that flexibility in a family business context, where you can, attend WHBA events like you're talking about and have some sort of professional development on the side, but also your phone's never off and you're always kind of there for the rest of your team.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's something where it can be very overwhelming for people that are looking into that, where they're like, I should have this work-life balance. And I think the more people I speak to on the podcast, the more kind of normalized I like to make it, which is like, yeah, shut your phone off or work a 4-hour work week or read a book or something like that. Sure. But let's be honest, if you don't hate what you're doing, I don't mind having my phone on, right? Mm-hmm. The people around me respect that I'm running a business and I'm, striving for excellence and one of the things that my clients come first. You know, okay, family's first, whatever. But when we're talking about, you know, realistic day to day, obviously family comes first. You're going to drop everything and run. But like, if a client calls, I'll drop a lot and run, right?
Right. And
I think that needs to be a little bit more normalized.
For sure. And I mean, there is a difference too between, you know, having your work life part of your personal life and not being present in the moment. And I think you can be
That's a great point.
At a dinner table with your friends and family and very present in that moment, just with your phone on sound in the background.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have to be on it, but be present in that moment and be on call.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And for everybody that knows what that means, is it's not searching Instagram during the dinner table, right? And I find sometimes it's like, oh, you're never around anymore. And you go hang out with a friend and everyone's just sitting on their phone. It's like, well, you know, this is not what I thought about it. So I think that's kind of where I like to kind of steer the conversation of, you know, the balance part of be as present as you can in those moments, and make time for things that are special.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's awesome. So we're coming down, but we always love to ask this question. So, you know, younger you getting into university, maybe getting out of university, maybe going to the first job, maybe not. What advice would you give to your younger self besides the imposter syndrome?
Yeah. Well, to be honest, I know I think I've said this twice already on this call, but I'm going to beat the nail in one more time.
Yeah.
Focus on what you can control. I would tell that to my younger self as well, too. I think, you know, like we said, I spent a lot of time worrying that because I didn't have to prepare a resume and go through an interview process to get my foot in the door like a lot of people do, that, you know, I was doubting the way people perceive me because of that. But it's what you do when you show up as well.
Totally.
And if I could tell my younger self that, then I would just enjoy the showing up I was doing and worry a little bit less.
Yeah, I love it. And I think, you know, as we kind of reflect on where we came from, you know, I have this conversation with a lot of friends that are either in business for self or, again, in the management role. It's like, it didn't matter if 10 people told me that. I'd have to live it myself.
That's true too. Yeah.
And I think, you know, if you can take it away and just come with it at grace. I mean, one of the things that for me was huge was patience. I don't have patience. So I was like, okay, well, too many people are saying, be patient, be patient. So I came up with a concept called patiently aggressive. So it's I'll be patient. I just need to know why. Right. So,
that's a good one.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Natasha, for being on the show. Episode 33, just with New Horizon. It's amazing. Guys, anybody tuning in, Natasha's a great example of someone coming from a family business, really working her way up in the most professional manner with a ton of success behind her. And, you know, the future is extremely bright. All the things that you're going to hear from today, you want to continue to hear on the podcast. So please check her out with New Horizon Developments. We're going to have all the links and stuff in the bio. One of the questions we always want to ask ourselves is why not me and why not now? And I think that goes along so much with what Natasha's story is and how kind of everybody comes through this journey. So always ask yourself that question. And thank you so much for tuning in, everybody listening. If you can share and like any of the posts or comments, it really means the world because we're trying to get the word out for the podcast. So Natasha, thank you so much for being on.
Thanks for having me. This was great.
Perfect.